Last time, Adaeze left everything behind for a new life with David. She was pregnant, hopeful. For the first time in years, she believed she was safe. She had no idea that safety was about to disappear. At first, David's mother was polite, distant but polite. She called Adaeze my daughter, though it never quite sounded warm. But within days, small things began to shift. Adaeze would cook dinner, and David's mother would quietly remake it, saying nothing, just sliding Adaeze's pot to the side. Adaeze would sit with David in the evening, and his mother would call him into another room, alone. At first, Adaeze told herself she was imagining things. She was pregnant, hormonal, tired. Surely it was nothing. But the whispers didn't stop. One evening, Adaeze walked past the kitchen and heard her name. She trapped him. You know how these market girls are. Adaeze froze. She told herself she misheard. The next day, David's sister looked at her belly and said with a small laugh, "Are you sure it's even his?" Adaeze laughed it off too. What else could she do? She was a guest in this house now, a guest with nowhere else to go. Slowly, David changed. The man who once told her she was beautiful even when she was tired now barely looked at her. When his mother spoke, he listened. When Adaeze spoke, he sighed. One night, Adaeze tried to tell him what his sisters had said about the baby. David didn't comfort her. He simply said, "My mother says you've been lying about a lot of things." That night, Adaeze cried herself to sleep, not because of what her sisters said, but because of how easily David believed it. As Adaeze's pregnancy progressed, she grew weaker. Constant headaches, swelling in her feet, days she could barely stand. She told David she needed to see a doctor. He nodded. "I'll take you tomorrow." Tomorrow came and went, then another day and another. Each time, David had a reason. He was busy. His mother needed him. There was no money, though somehow there was always money for other things. One morning, the pain became unbearable. Adaeze called out for David. No answer. She called for his mother. No answer. She tried to stand and collapsed against the wall. Somehow, through the pain she could barely describe, Adaeze crawled to the front door, out into the streets. A neighbor, a woman she barely knew, found her there. She called a taxi, paid for it herself, and took Adaeze to the hospital because the people inside that house did not. At the hospital, doctors said Adaeze was lucky to be alive. Hers and her baby's lives had been at serious risk. When David finally arrived, hours later, he didn't apologize. He looked at her and said, "Why did you make this into a big drama?" Adaeze said nothing, because in that moment, she understood something she had been refusing to see. The man she had given up everything for was never going to protect her. After the hospital, nothing changed. David's mother still ruled the house. David still listened to her mother over Adaeze. Adaeze stopped trying to explain herself. She stopped trying to be heard. She simply endured. She cooked. She cleaned. She cared for her two older children, who had learned without being told to stay quiet, stay small, stay out of the way. At night, Adaeze would place her hands on her belly and whisper to the baby growing inside her. "It's just you and me," she'd say. "Whatever happens, it's just us." One evening, the pains began. Adaeze called out for David. He was in the next room. She could hear his voice. She called again, louder. No one came. The pains grew stronger. Adaeze gripped the edge of the bed, breathing hard, tears running down her face, not from the pain alone, but from the silence. Finally, she managed to call a friend, a woman from the market, one of the only people who had ever shown her real kindness. "Please," Adaeze whispered into the phone, "please come." Adaeze's friend arrived just in time. There was no hospital bed, no doctor, no husband holding her hand. Just two women in a small room with nothing but determination and fear. Hours later, a baby's cry filled the room. Adaeze had given birth to a healthy baby girl, and through her exhaustion, through her pain, through everything she had endured, Adaeze smiled, because no matter what anyone said, no matter what anyone believed, the child was hers, and she loved her instantly and completely. In the days that followed, Adaeze waited. She waited for David to come hold his daughter. She waited for a naming ceremony, the celebration every child in that family had received. She waited for someone, anyone, to acknowledge that a new life had entered the world. No one came, no ceremony was held, no name was given by the family. So Adaeze named her daughter herself. She chose a name that meant "God has not forgotten me," because despite everything, Adaeze still believed that. 2 years passed. Adaeze's daughter grew bright-eyed, curious, full of laughter that somehow still existed in that heavy house. Then Adaeze discovered she was pregnant again. She didn't feel joy this time. She didn't feel hope. She felt only dread, because she knew deep down what was coming. When Adaeze told David, he didn't react the way he had the first time. There was no joy, no warmth. He looked at her for a long moment and then said the words that would shatter whatever was left of her heart. "That child is not mine." Adaeze didn't argue, didn't cry, not in front of him. She had no fight left. She simply turned, walked to her room, and closed the door. 7 years passed, but unlike before, these years were not wasted. Adaeze went back to selling bread, then buns, then small chops, then with the help of a small loan from her market friend, the same woman who had been there the night her daughter was born, Adaeze opened her own store, a real one with a sign, with her name on it. Slowly, quietly, Adaeze began saving, not for a better life inside that house, for a way out of it. Adaeze told no one, not David, not his mother, not even her own children at first. She found a small 2-bedroom apartment 20 minutes away near her store. She paid the deposit in cash, in secret over 6 months. Every night, she returned to David's house, cooked, cleaned, endured the same comments, the same coldness. But every night, she also packed, just a little, a few clothes here, a few documents there, hidden in bags at the bottom of her closet. She was no longer asking herself if she would leave, only when. Then, one ordinary morning, the same morning Adaeze had quietly chosen as her last time in that house, David walked into the kitchen, reached for a cup of water, and collapsed. The cup shattered. David's body hit the floor, his breathing shallow, his eyes wide with fear. For the first time in years, David looked at Adaeze, really looked at her, and in his eyes, she saw something she had waited 9 years to see. Fear, desperation, need. Within seconds, the house erupted. David's mother screamed. His sisters ran from their rooms. And then Just like before, all eyes turned to Adaeze. Adaeze, call an ambulance. Adaeze, please. Adaeze, you have to help him. David, on the floor, barely conscious, reached towards Adaeze. Adaeze, he whispered, please. Adaeze looked down at David. She thought about the hospital she had crawled to alone, the naming ceremony that never happened, the daughter he called a lie. She thought about 9 years of being told she was nothing by people who had never once treated her like she was something. And then Adaeze did something no one in that house expected. She took out her phone and called an ambulance. Because despite everything, Adaeze was not a cruel woman. She would not let a man die on the floor in front of his children. But when the ambulance arrived 10 minutes later, Adaeze did not get in the car with him. Instead, Adaeze walked upstairs. She picked up the 3 bags she had packed months ago, the ones hidden at the bottom of her closet. She gathered her 3 children, the 2 who had grown up watching her endure everything, and the daughter who had never been given a name by the people in that house. And as the ambulance drove away with David inside it, sirens fading into the distance, Adaeze walked out of the door of that house for the last time. No one stopped her. No one even noticed. They were too busy following the ambulance, too busy panicking over the man on the floor. For 9 years, Adaeze had been invisible in that house. Now she used that invisibility to walk away, quietly, completely, forever. That evening, Adaeze unlocked the door to a small apartment, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a working stove, a window that left in the afternoon light. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Her children explored every room, laughing, claiming corners as their own. Adaeze stood in the doorway and watched them. Later, she learned that David recovered, that he asked about her, that his mother even sent a message asking her to come back. For the children's sake, they said. Adaeze read the message once and never replied. Adaeze never got the apology she deserved, but she stopped waiting for it. Her story isn't about revenge. She didn't let David suffer when she could help him, because that was never who she was. But she also stopped sacrificing herself for people who had shown her again and again exactly who they were. Sometimes, the most powerful thing a woman can do isn't to fight back, is to simply walk away and never look back. If Adaeze's story touched you, let us know in the comments. Should she have stayed, or was she living the right choice?